Oh, oh. Littering. Unbelievable. Am I right? Now imagine I threw that bottle somewhere else. Maybe onto the beach, or the streets, a hiking trail, or maybe even an isolated island somewhere in the South Atlantic Ocean. My point is, that plastic bottle, it is going places. Places where you either go to every day, or places where no human has touched in 1,000 years. Littering has been etched as something taboo in our culture for years. It has been considered awful, dirty, and of course, a part of humanity's darkness. But what if I told you that the darkness behind these horrid, awful actions of ours can actually become our power? Let me explain. Now, first, let me tell you about a man named Sigmund Freud. He was known as the father of psychoanalysis, and he had ideas, plenty of ideas. Ideas such as the ego. Yes, I am talking about that ego. You know, the one most people mention when they're talking about self-esteem. Like Mr. Owen has a big ego. Yeah, okay. But that's not what I'm here to talk about today. What I'm here to talk about is another theory. This theory is called the death instinct. What is the death instinct? Well, Freud states that the death instinct is an unconscious drive that drives an organism to seek out activities that eventually lead to its own demise, which in simpler words are, humans are self-destructive by nature. Now, I know you might be in disbelief, hesitant in believing like a mere theory from a neurologist you have probably never heard of. But I am not telling this man's theory to you simply for you to believe. It is for you to recognize. Because a prime example of the death instinct in action, an example that harms us and happens to us every day, is climate change. Climate change, which is caused by increasingly small actions building up every day to eventually cause devastating harm. Like me, throwing that water bottle inappropriately. But wait, that is not the end of my explanation. Although maybe the death instinct may be a reason for actions, it is far from an excuse for it. I need you to know why the death instinct exists. So the death instinct is believed to exist in retaliation of something called the life instinct. The life instinct drives human compassion, connection, and survival. Now, the life instinct is very important because it directly connects to the reason why the death instinct chooses to manifest itself in climate change. It is because climate change directly jeopardizes life. Not only earthly life, but our life, human life, our lives, defined by our passion, empathy, journey, and social relationships. That is correct. Climate change won't only reach this green earth, it will also reach us, our stability. Surely you all already know about the data. The 10 warmest years in the entire record of history, only occurring in the past decade. Health impacts are rising, with deaths increasing by about a whopping 24% in only 10 decades. Climate change. Now let me tell you about the impacts it has had on us, our relationships. Climate change has increased stress in individuals, causing financial strain and inducing anxiety, thus leading to conflict between people, lowering relationship quality, and increasing divorce risk. Climate change is ruining our lives. Let me tell you about a story. Last March, I was in Hong Kong volunteering. No, I was in Hong Kong doing community service. I was helping farmers in a rural village pick up trash that was swept into their farming areas. Their farms, their farms were beautiful. They were a result from hard work, and I could see the life breathe into them. I could see the farmer's life entangled in those farms, the beauty of life. However, within that beauty resided darkness. Specifically, resided trash. And at that moment, I realized something. I realized that climate change, whether you ignore it or not, is still there. It is unavoidable. And so I remembered something more. I remembered something I tried so hard to forget. What I tried to forget was how this destruction, this pollution, it's also a part of me. Growing up, I felt detached to the idea of climate change. It wasn't the fact that I didn't care about it or that I didn't know what it was. No, it was the fact that it felt unavoidable. Like it would never end and it could never be helped whether I tried to or not. This was apathy. I didn't recognize climate change. I just labeled it. Label it as another inevitable tragedy. What I did wrong was giving up. I gave up by not giving myself a chance to maybe gain any more insight, garner any energy to take an action. I was ignoring damage, which would only cause more harm in the end. But maybe that's the point. Maybe in my ignorance existed harm, self-destruction, the death instinct. Now hear me out, because let me restate my words once again. The death instinct exists in retaliation to the life instinct. So, if even the harm in us, even if even the harm in us exists to rebel, then doesn't that still count as our power of rebellion? Doesn't that mean that all of us, just like the death instinct, can stand up against the things we oppose? But only if we first recognize our darkness. Now here's the question. What draws the line between accepting our darkness and blatantly ignoring or excusing it? Because here's the trap. If I just say humans are self-destructive, I can shrug, I can throw my bottle away and say, oh well, it's my nature. That is not acceptance. That is surrender. However, if I deny my darkness, if I pretend humans are purely good, purely rational, purely saviors, then I become brittle. The moment I make a mistake, I break. I start thinking that I failed. So what I want you to do is to accept it. Accept pollution, accept climate change, accept global warming. Not to deny it, not to forget about it. To accept that self-destruction is a part of everyone's nature. Even the activists, even the people who don't care, even me, even you. Because once you accept that destruction is a part of everyone's nature, that is how you accept that life and rejuvenation is also a part of ours. Now, in a few seconds, I'm going to pick up that water bottle that I just drew. An action that you may have considered horrendous in the first place, but matter of fact, an action that's already been normalized and excused by our society. So, ladies and gentlemen, and my friends, what I want you to do, my final question for you tonight is, are you satisfied with your action on global warming? If you are, then with whom If you aren't, then you know what to do. Because now you know that darkness in you can power the actions for you to make a difference. Thank you.